On today's 30-minute mechanic, I'm going to kind of catch you up on where we are on the Ranger. May show you a few things and do a little bit of measuring and kind of figure out where we're headed next. So buckle up, let's go. All right, now, the first thing we got going on here is I want to do a little bit of measurement, fitting, checking, and whatnot. And I have no idea where my Sharpie is. In regards to the rear wheels, and here they are. In regards to rear wheels and rear end width and all that kind of good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little square here and I'm just going to put me a mark, if I can reach it, on the floor right there. Okay. So I just put me a mark, just flush with the tire out here. So I know what the outer limits of the stock tires are. And I can measure everything and do this, but I kind of want to do this. I'd say kind of as a check, so I can come back. So when I start making my rear end, I have something to kind of double check with, and I need a 1/2 inch, not a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch socket, I think. 3/4. Of course, I don't have it. Never prepared. Some days I think I'm prepared, but I'm never prepared. Okay, got a socket. Yeah, let's see if we can bust these loose. You know, I probably should put a jack into this. Let's bust a couple loose first. Maybe. Oh, really? That's the dead battery. I'm out. Time in. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's get our jack real quick. Slide it into that shock mount and just take the load off a little bit. Get it just off the ground. All right, back to it. 3, 5. Number 5. Hello. Hoo-yah! Get out of here, spider. Okay, stock wheel off. Okay. Now, this is why I don't throw things away. Right here. Now, you got a whole box full of lug nuts here. These came out of a package I've had this package of lug nuts in my toolbox at home since probably 2005 or 2006. So basically 20 years, I've had this pack of lug nuts. I had no need for them, no use for them. Now I do, because they fit these wheels. So look at that. Don't throw things away because you never know when you might need them. Okay. Put those right there for a second. Well, what wheel are you using, James? Well, I'll show you. We have a set of Centerline Convo Pros. Now, this is a 15 by 10 with 3 3/8 inch backspace. I wanted a deep looking wheel, and I wanted a 15 by 10. Maybe I can find the lug nuts. What's going on here? There we go. We'll spin a couple of these guys down. I wanted, why Convo Pro? I wanted an 80s looking wheel, and that's not the right socket. Lucky for me, I am prepared. I wanted an 80s looking wheel. After putting Jonathan's Warrior, Centerline Warrior on there, I was like, oh man, those are cool. That's an 80s vibe. I love that. And I don't think they make those anymore. And they didn't have the right backspace in that particular wheel anyways. Maybe they still make it. I don't know. The Convo Pro, they have a 15 by 4 with 2 3/8 inch backspace, which is pretty darn good. So that's why I decided, well, you know what? Let's just put a Convo Pro on there. I can get a backspace for the back that I want and the backspace that I want for the front. Okay, now this is not how it's going to fit, obviously, because that would stick way out past the body. You know, we're gonna narrow the 9-inch. So that's kind of what we're doing here, is just saying, hey, let's get a rough measurement of how much narrower our 9-inch is going to need to be. So again, I just took my carpenter square, put me a mark on the floor, and then I can get my happy sappy tape measure here. And that is 3 3/4 inches. Okay, so in order to put the outside edge of this in approximately the same spot as the outside of the tire, of course, the tire has a bulge on that. So we could add a little bit for a bulge. So what, 4.5? Bring it out to 4.5 inches. 3/4 inch bulge, maybe. It really depends on what tire I run on, but and we got 4 inches from the back edge. Okay, so that's going to work out. That's going to work out pretty good, actually. 4 inches from the back of the rim to the edge of the leaf spring. Okay, that's going to be snug, but I think it's going to work. $17 3/4 there. I'm just making measurements to remember and plug into my CAD model on the computer. We'll get you in there and let you look at the 80s goodness that is the Convo Pro. Now the other day, last Saturday, and you can see my big straight edge on the floor here. I took my straight edge, dropped my laid my straight edge on the floor there, dropped my plumb bob from the center of my roll cage in there, called that 0, and then I measured back and measured from the floor up to the frame, floor to frame, floor to frame, all the way back past the axle, and did that to the top and bottom. So in my CAD model, I created a profile of this frame in my CAD model, so I could figure out stuff like where our roll cage down bar is going to hit out here, and our spring eye height on both ends, and then the arc of the spring, and where the spring, thickness of the spring pack, all that kind of stuff. So I got all that stuff in the CAD model on the computer in there. All right, another thing. You see my rabid raccoon holes here. I actually cut these with a hole saw, but I was cutting down at an angle like this. I was trying to cut through the firewall at an angle. Of course, it's so deep it runs into your hole saw, and then you end up just kind of making a mess. Not a big deal. I'm actually going to print some filler pieces. I was looking around. Okay, I was looking around internet for roll cage trim pieces. Little things you slip around there to seal up around your roll cage. And I flipped onto one page, 3D printed roll cage trim pieces. I was like, really? Why am I this dumb? I have a 3D printer and I have the ability to make them. So I'm actually making fill pieces that fit right here. Mine will just be a big rectangle, and have 4 bolts. Cover that up. Not a big deal. I'll print out 2 different ones, one with a hole in them, one that's solid, and then I'll just put them on there, bolt them on, be done. And then from the inside, there's a trim panel that'll cover everything up. So the rabid raccoon holes in the back wall are not a big deal. Now, why do I have 2 rabid raccoon holes? Well, my initial measurements were coming through the bottom set of holes and landing on the frame right here between the bed mount and this bracket. And it had plenty of angle to satisfy an NHRA requirement, and that was fine. Problem is, over on that side, the filler neck hose was right in that area, and I thought, well, I can run the filler neck around. And I decided, I might as well move the bar back, clear the filler neck tube, come through higher in the wall, and it'll be even better. And it makes me happier because I'm going to land them right here. Like I took my cutoff wheel and I cut a notch out of this dude. I'm going to land my bar right there. I thought I had one of those laying around here. Land my bar right there on top of the frame, and then it'll shoot up through the top hole and into the truck. I may have to do a little more, just a little skosh more trimming here to get a nice straight bar in there. But that's a good spot. It's got this big honking cross member tying the left to the right. Plus, it's right above our spring perch area. Some guys in pickups, they kind of get wonky, kind of get crazy with the down bars, and they run them out way out to the back of the bed, or they run 17 bars left and right coming out of there. All right, one other little thing about the down bars. You see where I got the hole here? Well, just above that hole, just above here, you end up, there's double sheet metal inside. Maybe you can see that this way. Yeah. There's double sheet metal, and I wanted to stay out of that area. I wanted to just go through the single thickness. So that's one of the reasons why I did it. I did it where I did it. And one of the reasons why I'm going to land it right here, as opposed to, this would be a kind of a good spot right here because the frame, you can see the frame's kind of got a kick up right there where a bed mount, where a bed bolt could go, which I'm actually going to relocate the bed bolt from up there to that hole right there. There's a bed cross member that sits right there. So we'll bolt the bed there, but I wanted to stay out of that double layer of sheet metal there just because, I don't know, it just makes things harder to deal with than a single. So bar will come through, go through the single wall, and then it'll land right here. Of course, we'll clean all that up, get our bar cut angle just right, and we'll weld around it right to the frame right there. We may have to trim a little more of this off. That was just kind of our preliminary notch to kind of look at it. But yeah, we're not a big deal. Okay, so that's what we're doing with the bars there. We'll probably work on that some this weekend. When I have clothes I can get dirty on. But we'll get that. We may trim that out. Like I said, trim that out just a little bit more so that bar is nice and straight coming from inside there through the wall and down to the frame. It's a little bit of an angle. Like this. Angles up just a little bit that direction. And I actually thought about putting a bend in it just so it could go straight through the back of the cab and then make a little turn and go up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it straight. And then my bed will just have a notch. We'll just put a small notch at the front of the bed so the bed sets back on. So the bed sets back on and we don't have to do anything weird there. So it'll just be kind of notched in the front. I'm really not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, more bridges coming up. All right, now let's get this wheel back off and get our stock wheel back on there. Yeehaw. That off. Those back in my box. And even that lug nut kit even got the old locking lug nut thing. I don't know that I'm going to use those. I just get a few more lug nuts and run a regular lug nut. Those things, it always seems like it's all good until you can't find the lug nut key. And then you got to figure stuff out. All right, how does this go on there now? Oh, I can just slide it on there. Oh my gosh, really? That means I can't see nothing. There it goes. It's too dark over here. I can't see what I'm doing. I'm only going to put a couple on here. There's no need to put 5. Come on. What's happening? It's going very snugly for some reason. Oh, I hate these. Okay. Wheel back on. Well, that's like totally crooked. There he goes. Brother. Get off of there. Ah, I hate those. I hate lug nuts with covers on them. Okay. All right. Show and tell time again. Entertained several different ideas for rear suspension, from ladder bars to a true 4-link to a triangulated 4-link. And my brain just kept coming back to just leave the leaf springs under the back, keep it simple, and put some cow tracks on it from Calvert Racing. And we've got all the parts here to do the cow tracks. Everything's in here. Actually on my Big Block Ranger version 1.0, the other truck I did, I actually made my own, and they worked fantastic. They really tamed down the rear end and made the truck drivable. Before, it wheel hopped like crazy, and it was a nightmare to drive. But I built those, and it worked really good. So that's kind of where we're gonna start with. If it turns out to be too violent or we can't deal with it from a tuning perspective, then we'll take the bed off and we'll revisit the rear suspension. Maybe a triangulated 4-link. I don't know. I do want to maintain the stock fuel tank, so anything I do is going to have to clear that dude, and that really presents a problem for a lot of stuff because they want to be, any sort of links are going to want to be where that gas tank lives. So gotta compromise a little bit, but I think these are going to be great. Like I said, I profiled the frame and I've mapped all this stuff out, and I got a real good idea where my instant center line is going to be, and just how everything's going to work. All right, now just for grins, I'm going to play around with a little bit of cardboard CAD here. Hey, look, there's my frame profile measurements. As I was laying on the floor, I was measuring the frame heights so I could make a profile out of it. I think I'm going to cut some of this off real quick. Just square this up. Okay. Now, do a little cardboard CAD here in regards to, where's my tape measure? There it is. In regards to our step notch, straighten that out. Kind of want to get something in cardboard to kind of get an idea of what we're going to be dealing with. 3-inch. I'll build it out of 3x2. Some of that metal sitting right there. Now, I think I have some dimensions in my head. Is that straight? Because that doesn't look straight. 3. Darn straight. Let's call this the middle. And we're going to go 2 inches out, 2 inches out. And then what was the height again? Let's do a grand total of 9. It'll be oversize. 9. Cardboard aided design. Sure. Okay, and then from there, I think I want the gap. I think I want the gap to be 8 inches wide at the bottom. Maybe that's too big. I don't know. That's why I'm doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 10. And let's see. It's about right there. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just for looksies. Down to there. One comes down to there. And then we want to be 3 inches off of that. Oops. My my table slash box is trying to fall over. Right there. 3-inch over is there. 3 inches there. Cardboard aided design. One more line. Oh my gosh. And then we'll just zip it off right across here. It goes there. Okay. I don't have enough flat surfaces in here to do everything I want to do sometimes. All right. Got our cardboard aided design right there, what our step notch could possibly look like. Just snip it out real fast. Come on. Can't cut a straight line for nothing. There we go. That's what that'll look like. Okay. There's our cardboard step notch right there. And it'll be, when I build it out of steel, I'll cut these angles and they'll be welded just across there, so it'll be closed up on the ends and top. So let's kind of see how this is going to fit our frame. All right. Now this frame actually has, right here at the top, there's a flat section. So it's really flat right up there. And I'm going to use that to my advantage here. And basically use the flat section as the same as right here. So there's our bump stop. That's about what our notch is going to look like. Of course, it'll be trimmed down here to match. Yeah, kind of. Man, I wish I could just weld the cardboard in right now and be done. Let's wish I had some way to hold this in place so I could eyeball it better, but that's the intent so far is of course we'll cut up here, drop it in. I don't know how I want to do this. This frame is interesting. Of course, I mean, I couldn't build anything straight and square. They got to put all these little doodads and bends and swoopy doos and all sorts of stuff going on here. Not exactly sure how I want to do this without just completely lopping the frame off. Hey. Yep. Yep. Pretty weirdly shaped. Cuts back in that way. But at this edge, it's pretty good. That's where we're going to be. That's where we're going to be cutting in. Yeah. On the inside, About, yeah, yep. Probably just center it over the hole for the, here's our plumb bob, center it over the hole for the bump stop. Give us a mark up here to center everything up. And I think that'll work. I think that'll work pretty good. Unless I want to go wider with it and get completely past any of this bendy stuff. But I don't think I really need to. Yep. Okay. I feel much better about what I'm doing there. All right. It's going to do it for 30-minute mechanic today. Didn't do a whole lot of work, but I did a bunch of things that's been in my head that I needed to measure, like making a cardboard step notch, seeing how it's going to fit. I think that's going to be great. Checking the wheel offset and how much we're going to need to narrow our 9-inch to fit under here. Kind of showed you where we're headed with the roll bar and the rear suspension. So you know the drill. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.